Welcome, racing fans, to Motorsports Radio USA with racing news for Sunday, July 29th. So, a big buzz topic for NASCAR fans and really the NASCAR community is the shaking up of the schedule and the stops along the way in a typical NASCAR season. The venues. Last week, Tony Stewart stirred things up by implying that the NASCAR Cup Series and Xfinity Series should race on dirt, particularly Eldora Speedway, which hosts the NASCAR Truck Series, and a push for short tracks and whatever other pushes there may be. One interesting idea, which was reported by NBC Sports, turning a 1.5 mile track into a short track, a transformation. David Reagan, Cup Series of the 38 driver of the 38 car for the Cup Series, threw out an idea of changing Atlanta Motor Speedway into a short track. The big buzz with Atlanta is the aged and weathered pavement that eats tires, and the drivers cry, "Do not repave." Okay, but everyone knows that the possibility of repaving Atlanta is imminent, especially when track officials say that eventually a repave will be needed. David Reagan tells NBC Sports last weekend up in New Hampshire, quote, "Whenever they go to pave Atlanta Motor Speedway, they need to reduce the size of the track to 3/4 of a mile and build it like Iowa. I think they would make a big mistake if they just repaved it." This was an online article, NBC Sports, writer Dustin Long. That would be an interesting idea, because then you'd have the second race of the season, first race without restrictor plates, and a short track race. So that would be interesting. Now, a lot of hardcore NASCAR fans claim that the season really doesn't start till Atlanta just because it's the first race without plates. Now, as for dirt, okay, the last time the NASCAR Cup Series raced on dirt was on September 30th, 1970 at the North Carolina State Fairgrounds. Ryan Newman had this to say, saying the Cup Series was not above racing on dirt 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And then he says this, which is kind of funny. "Dirt is where we get our food from. There's nothing wrong with racing on it." Kyle Larson says he would not like to see the Cup Series on dirt, saying, "To me, Cup belongs on pavement and real road course tracks." Then says that he doesn't know, quote, "really know how to answer that question without making people mad." The idea of going to different tracks is sounding good to folks, different tracks from the ones we normally see. Denny Hamlin says, "I think new venues always adds excitement." Then he says that's what really, in his opinion, boomed the popularity in the 2000s, going to these new tracks. Hamlin points out that Kentucky was awesome the first time, but then fizzled out. And then there's road courses. Hamlin says, if you want to talk about a road course, there's some amazing tracks just north of the border in Canada. Canadian Motorsports Park, where the Truck Series races at, which is August 26th, up in Canada. And yes, racing fans, we can't forget about the so-called Roval. All right, 2 tests at the Roval have been completed. Charlotte Motor Speedway, back on July 10th and 17th. Bank of America Roval 400, scheduled September 30th, which is an elimination playoff race. Denny Hamlin, driver of the 11, says, "It's certainly a wild card race, and maybe that's what the fans want. If it is, then we'll do that every week. But I definitely like the idea of going to new venues because there's always a level of excitement." Now, currently, NASCAR has agreements with racetracks that are on the current schedule, and these agreements run through 2020. Which means if there are any changes, it won't be until 2021. And of course, the big buzz is new cars coming out in 2020. So this should be interesting. A lot of changes, I think, are coming up after the 2019 season. we'll get into that as time progresses. Denny Hamlin says, none of this is ever going to happen, not until these tracks and NASCAR get together and are willing to make changes. Well, these regular tracks, if they want the NASCAR to succeed, right, I think they might have to bend a little bit just to keep NASCAR itself flourishing, if you will, and it'll be better for everybody, right? Because if NASCAR goes away, all these tracks are going away too, and I'm pretty sure the track owners don't want that to happen. That's my opinion. But I also have one other opinion. The Roval 400 is a day race, and I wonder if we can make that a night race. Just saying, the October race at Charlotte was always a night race, and then they switched it to a day race, and I don't know, I think it took the buzz out a little bit because Charlotte's so much nicer at night. You get one more night race in there before the season wraps up, and I wonder if they can do that. I mean, I don't know if the lights are bright enough to get the infield, probably not, but maybe you can do a little something with that. So that's that. Now I'm gonna do a list eventually of tracks that I think should have lights, but I'll do that for in another podcast. Thank you for tuning in. This is Manny Allegretta, motorsportsradio.net.